Today on Will Bake for Food, I'm going to show you how to make this heavenly angel food cake.
Only food for me. Food, food, food.
Welcome back to Will Bake for Food. Have you ever been walking through the grocery store and all of a sudden you see these piles of black tins that have an angel food cake in them? Well, I'm going to show you how you can make it at home without a whole lot of labor, and they are just as delicious, if not more delicious. You can find a full list of instructions and a full set of ingredients on my Will Bake for Food blog. Now, let's get started. I'm going to give you a couple of tips. First things first, you have to have some sort of fluted pan with a removable bottom. Okay, and most cake recipes call for you to grease your pan. Do not grease your pan. It will not work. I did it once and the cake fell completely, so don't grease your pan at all. Now, this pan has these little feet on it because when you cool the cake, you have to invert it. If you do not have the feet on your pan, make sure that your flute goes up above the bottom of your pan because it has to be able to invert in order to set. Okay. Next tip that I have is we're making a meringue, basically. And though I've not had a whole lot of trouble with this, I'm just safeguarding my bowl by using just a little bit of white vinegar. If you have lemon, you can use lemon juice, something like that, and wiping down every part that could touch the egg whites, because what you want to do is make sure there's no detergent or anything like that in your bowl, on your whisk, etc. Okay? I'm going to do that. I'll be right back. Alright, now that my bowl is extremely clean, it is time to sift together our dry ingredients. What I have here is 1.5 cups of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of cake flour. Now the best way to measure out cake flour that I found, just so that you don't get too much cake flour, is to actually take a big spoon and spoon it into your measuring cup. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this 1 cup of cake flour in a sifter in a bowl here, and then take out 1/2 cup of your sugar from your 1.5 cups of sugar and put it in here as well. Okay, and then your 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then just sift it together. Once you've sifted it 3 times, go ahead and take a whisk and make sure that all of those ingredients are whisked together. Okay? Then you can set that aside and get prepared for your eggs. Now, I'm lucky this week because I made a bunch of pastry cream and I have the leftover egg whites. It does take quite a few egg whites to make an angel food cake, because basically what it is a meringue that you then mix a bit of cake flour into and then bake. Okay? So, one other tip that I have for you is when separating egg whites, if you're making one of these from scratch and you're just doing your egg whites to yolks, etc., make sure that you have a safety bowl, because the thing you do not want to happen is for any bit of yolk to actually get into this white mixture, because if you have any yolk or fat or anything in this white mixture, they will not inflate, I promise. I've tried a couple of times and it just falls and it just doesn't work. Okay, so pour all of your 12 egg whites into your bowl. It's a lot, I know. Okay? All your 12 egg whites into your bowl, and then just turn the beater on the whisk attachment for just a couple of minutes. I know it's just a lot of egg whites, so it takes a little bit of time. So it's been about 1.5 minutes or so, and what I've got here is I've got some foam started. I don't know if you can see it there, but just some foam started on top of the egg. So we're starting to get a little bit of air incorporated and break them up a bit. Now, the next ingredient is very essential for this type of meringue that we're making, okay? You need a cream of tartar. Now what I found is in baking other things, you need about 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar for every 3 eggs. So I'm using 12 egg whites here, so I've got 1 whole teaspoon of cream of tartar. Okay? Now, whisk it pretty high until we get kind of a soft peak. Okay, so we've been going for about 3 minutes or so, just to start to kind of get a little bit of a soft peak. And the way I define it is, if you take the whisk off and you move the whisk across it, you can actually have a trail in there from the whisk. And if you let the whisk out, it will kind of hold just a tiny peak. In a meringue, what you have is some sort of acidic component, sugar and egg whites. So what we're gonna take is this cup of sugar and just little bit at a time while it's mixing, incorporate until we kind of get a stiff peak. You can't really put all of the sugar in at one time, because if you do, it will completely deflate any air that you already have into your egg whites. And what we're looking for is for the moisture in the egg whites to actually absorb and dissolve the sugar granules. All my sugar's in, so we need to let it mix until we get a stiff peak, so about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, depending on how much humidity is in the air. We're starting to look pretty good here, and I'm going to test my peak to see how our eggs are doing. It's not quite a stiff peak yet, and another tell is if you take just a slight amount there, and there's a little bit of sugar still here, so we want to beat just a little bit longer so all of the sugar and a little bit more air is incorporated into a meringue. I'm going to turn the speed up a little bit higher. Alright, that's looking pretty good. There, let's see. Yep, now we have it probably as stiff as we're going to get it. It's holding. If you turned it over, it would not come out, so Mary Berry would not get any on her head. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract goes straight in here and mix it in. So I'm just going to transfer all of this to a wide bowl here. Look at that beautiful meringue. Remember that dry mixture that we had? Now it's time to incorporate this here. So what we're going to do is just a little bit sprinkle over top. If you wanted to sift this again over top of here, you could totally do that. Whatever floats your boat. I've sifted it 3 times, so there's no lumps or anything like that. Now, here is where the technique comes in. What we have to do is to not deflate all that air that we just spent about 5 minutes putting in here. We want to cut down the middle, roll around the outside, and then rotate your bowl as you go. I've gotten rid of all of that dry, so I'm going to put a little bit more on top of here. You can't dump it all in because it would never get incorporated completely. Okay, all that seems to be absorbed. I'm going to do I'm going to put all the rest of this. So in 3 additions, that's what we kind of did here. Let's get all the rest of that on top of here and incorporate it. Now, I have a little offset spatula because I need that in a second. So I'm going to just go ahead and wipe off my big spatula here just to make sure I don't have any pockets of meringue or anything like that. Oh, there's my oven preheated at 350 degrees. I've got a little bit of dry on the very bottom, so you have to make sure that you scoop down and go around. Don't worry, you won't deflate it too much if you go down underneath. Perfect. We're looking pretty good. I don't see any pockets of dry, so don't overmix it much more. Remember, this is ungreased. Depending on the weight of your bowl, you'll be able to hold it and dollop it. There you go. And you can wipe down this, don't worry, if it gets on the sides a bit. Here's the next tip I have. Because we've incorporated this in a little bit of a staggered way, what we need to do is get a lot of the air out that had created pockets in there. So just take your spatula and run it, stick it all the way until it touches the bottom, and run it around, kind of in a zigzag, around in a circle, just to get rid of any of those air pockets. Then smooth out your top again, one more time. So 350 degrees for about 30 minutes, and I'll show you how it looks when it comes out. Okay, so my cake ended up baking for about 38 minutes, and I just have a little tester here. I'm gonna stick it right in the center between the stem and the outside, and it comes out clean as a whistle. Okay, so here's how you have to cool your cake so that when all the heat goes out of it, it doesn't completely fall. And it won't fall out, I promise. It's stuck to the sides. It will flip over like this and just let it rest like that. Now, here's the hard part, as if this didn't smell amazing enough. We have to let this sit for a minimum of an hour and a half. Okay, so it's been nearly 2 hours. Our cake is completely cooled. And here's how you unmold it. Because we didn't grease this, it is stuck to the sides of the pan. Now, you need that process for it actually to rise up. And look how much it like puffed up inside here. So what we do is you can take a butter knife if you want to, but I've just got this spatula here that I'm gonna stick down the sides and just as close to the sides as you can. And at this point, I also like to do next to the flute all the way around. Dun, dun, dun! Let's see if it comes out. Woo! Look at that. Beautiful. Now, we have to take the flute out. Right? And boom! There you go. Doesn't that look heavenly? This will store in this container for about 2 days, 2 to 3 days, if it lasts that long. It probably won't last that long. I know it won't at my house. But a little bit of fresh whipped cream and some macerated strawberries or something like that on this, and it's a delicious dessert, and it tastes heavenly. This has been Will Bake for Food. Thank you so much for watching.
Only food